St. John's is the capital of Newfoundland and Labrador and the easternmost city in North America, perched on a steep harbor at the very edge of the continent. It sits on the Avalon Peninsula, where the island of Newfoundland meets the open North Atlantic, geographically closer to Ireland than to most of Canada. The city itself holds around 110,000 people, with just over 200,000 across the wider metropolitan area. This is one of the oldest European settled cities in North America, with roots as a working fishing port stretching back more than 5 centuries. Newfoundland even keeps its own clock, 30 minutes ahead of the rest of Atlantic Canada, a quirk that catches almost every first-time visitor off guard. St. John's suits travelers drawn to rugged coastline, deep history, and a music-soaked pub culture rather than big city polish or warm weather comfort. Its signature draw is raw North Atlantic scenery, from iceberg-dotted waters in late spring to whales and seabirds through the early summer. The real trade-off is the weather. This is the foggiest and windiest city in Canada, and gray, damp days are common even at the height of summer. It is also quite remote. Reaching the island means a flight or a long ferry, and prices on many everyday goods run higher than the mainland. Most visitors find 3 to 5 days about right, enough for the city itself, plus day trips to lighthouses, fishing villages, and coastal trails. Families do well here too, with an aquarium, big parks, and gentle harborfront walks sitting alongside the rougher coastal hikes. If you want a walkable, friendly, and distinctly ungeneric corner of North America, St. John's delivers something very few other cities can. Getting to St. John's almost always means flying, since the city sits on a large island far out in the North Atlantic. St. John's International Airport sits just 6 kilometers from downtown, which translates to roughly a 10 to 15-minute drive. It works as a regional hub, with direct flights to Halifax, Toronto, and Montreal, plus seasonal links farther afield. Round-trip fares from elsewhere in Canada have recently averaged around $300, though they swing widely by season and demand. From the airport, a taxi to a downtown hotel runs about $35 Canadian under a fixed zone rate system. Metrobus Route 14 also serves the airport for a couple of dollars, but service is infrequent and awkward with luggage. There's no train to the island or anywhere on it. Newfoundland's railway shut down decades ago and was never replaced. The only alternative to flying is the Marine Atlantic Ferry from Nova Scotia, a crossing of roughly 14 to 16 hours on the seasonal Argentia route. That ferry mainly makes sense if you want your own car for a road trip across the island, not as a quick way in. Once you arrive, a rental car is the single most useful decision for most visitors who want to see beyond the downtown core. The best coastal sites, including Cape Spear, Petty Harbour, and the East Coast Trail, sit outside the city and are awkward to reach without one. Economy rentals run roughly 60 to 75 Canadian dollars a day, a little above mainland rates because of island supply. Fuel is also pricier than the mainland, hovering near $1.70 a liter, though Newfoundland charges no highway tolls anywhere. Downtown itself is very walkable, a compact grid of row houses, pubs, and shops stacked above the harbor. The catch is the hills. The streets climb steeply from the waterfront, so expect a real workout and keep an eye on the wind. Most downtown restaurants, bars, and the harbor front sit within a 10 to 15-minute walk of one another. Metrobus covers the wider city, but routes run infrequently and are built for commuters rather than sightseeing. A single fare is $2.50 as of this recording, with a 10-ride pass around $22.50. Taxis are metered and easy to flag downtown, starting near $3.50 with a per-kilometer rate after that. Ride-hailing exists through Uber, but the driver pool is small, so do not count on it the way you would in a major city. If you do drive, downtown parking is cheap by Canadian standards, roughly $2 an hour or $15 for a full day. Most visitors should base themselves downtown, within walking distance of the harbor, the restaurants, and the George Street nightlife. Downtown puts you steps from the waterfront and inside the most photogenic stretch of brightly painted row houses in the city. The trade-off downtown is the hills and limited parking, plus some weekend noise near the George Street bar strip. Mid-range hotels here cluster around $250 Canadian a night, based on current listings. Upscale options, including the larger Harbor View hotels, push past $330 a night in peak summer. Budget travelers can find simpler hotels and motels nearer the edges of town from around $140. For the cheapest beds, a hostel dorm runs about $40, though the city's hostel scene is fairly small. Short-term rentals are widely available, with a typical Airbnb landing near $270 a night. The city is also full of heritage, bed, and breakfasts inside restored row houses, a characterful option many visitors prefer. A quieter alternative is the Churchill Square area uptown, a leafy residential pocket with cafes and far easier parking. It trades the harbor buzz for calm and convenience, sitting a short drive or a long uphill walk from downtown. History lovers gravitate toward the Battery, a cliffside former fishing village clinging to the north side of the harbor. Just outside the center, Kitty Vitty is a tiny postcard fishing cove with its own brewery and artist studios. For couples and first-time visitors, downtown is the clear pick, putting the city's whole character right outside the door. Families often prefer the uptown and suburban hotels, where parking is free and the rooms run larger and cheaper. Solo travelers do well downtown too, since the area is safe, social, and easy to navigate entirely on foot. There are no zones to truly avoid here. St. John's is small and safe, so location is about convenience, not security. St. John's is best known for its dramatic coastal landmarks, and the headline site is Signal Hill, rising above the harbor Narrows. Signal Hill is where Marconi received the first transatlantic wireless signal in 1901, and the Atlantic views from the top are immense. At its summit, Cabot Tower is free to enter, while the wider historic site charges a small fee of about $4. Plan 90 minutes to 2 hours here, more if you walk the steep North Head Trail down toward the Battery below. The other essential is Cape Spear, the easternmost point in North America, about a 25-minute drive south of the city. Its lighthouse, the oldest surviving in Newfoundland, sits on cliffs where you can be the first person on the continent to see sunrise. Admission runs around $4, and whales and the occasional iceberg drift close offshore through late spring and summer. Back in town, the Rooms is the province's flagship museum, archive, and art gallery, all inside one striking modern building. Adult admission is about $14, and it easily fills half a day with Newfoundland history and Atlantic art. Two grand stone churches crown the downtown skyline, the Roman Catholic Basilica and the older Anglican Cathedral nearby. The Basilica of St. John the Baptist is a national historic site, and stepping inside to see its ornate ceiling costs nothing. Downtown itself is an attraction, thanks to Jelly Bean Row, the brightly painted wooden houses lining the hilly residential streets. Wandering Water Street and the side lanes costs nothing, and it is the best way to feel the city's character. Down at the water, Harborside Park is a small green strip where you can watch fishing boats and the occasional ship come and go. After dark, George Street packs more bars into 2 short blocks than almost anywhere else in Canada. It is loud, friendly, and famous for live traditional music. And you can even be screeched in as an honorary Newfoundlander. Just east of downtown, Kitty Vitty Village is a tiny fishing cove with a popular brewery known for its Iceberg beer. For science and views, the Johnson Geo Center is built right into the rock of Signal Hill and explains the region's deep geology. The city is also unusually green for its size, with several large parks worth a slow afternoon. Bowring Park is the grandest, a Victorian-era expanse of ponds, statues, and gardens, and it is completely free to enter. Bannerman Park, near downtown, dates to the 1860s and has a popular outdoor pool and playground in summer. The Memorial University Botanical Garden, a short drive west, charges about $6 for its trails and native plant collections. Families should make time for Petty Harbour, a working fishing village 20 minutes south with a small mini aquarium. The mini aquarium is hands-on and inexpensive at around $12, and children can touch local sea creatures in the tanks. History buffs can add the Railway Coastal Museum and the small Titanic and Iceberg exhibit, both downtown and quick to visit. Across the harbor narrows, Fort Amherst offers crumbling wartime gun batteries and one of the best views back at the city. Outdoors, the East Coast Trail is the region's crown jewel, more than 300 kilometers of stitched-together coastal hiking paths. Sections near the city lead to sea stacks, hidden coves, and clifftop lookouts, with day hikes for every fitness level. From late spring into summer, boat tours chase whales, puffins, and icebergs out of nearby Bay Bulls and Witless Bay. That seabird reserve hosts North America's largest Atlantic puffin colony, best seen on a morning tour in June or July. Humpback whales are the stars, from June into July, feeding on capelin close to shore and sometimes visible right from the cliffs. For a tougher payoff, a longer guided hike reaches the Spout, a natural wave-driven geyser along the coast south of the city. Closer to town, Middle Cove Beach draws crowds in summer when tiny capelin fish roll ashore by the thousands. For first-time visitors, a focused 2-day plan covers the city's signature sites without ever feeling rushed. Day 1 starts at Signal Hill mid-morning, allowing about 2 hours for Cabot Tower and the clifftop views. Walk or drive back down for lunch on Water Street, then spend the afternoon exploring the rooms. Cap the first evening on George Street, catching live traditional music and an early round at a classic pub. Day 2 begins with the early drive out to Cape Spear for sunrise and the morning light on the cliffs. Return through Kitty Vitty for a brewery stop, then close with a slow wander through the Jelly Bean Row streets. Travelers who come for the outdoors should build the trip around the coastline, ideally across 3 full days. Day 1 tackles a southern East Coast Trail section, like the Cobbler's Path toward Logie Bay, over a half day. Spend that afternoon out at Cape Spear, walking the headland trails beyond the lighthouse for open ocean views. Day 2 is a morning boat tour from Bay Bulls for whales, puffins, and any icebergs still passing through. Use the afternoon for Signal Hill's North Head Trail, a steep but rewarding loop above the harbor narrows. Day 3 can reach farther afield, north to the beaches and trails around Middle Cove and Torbay. Families with kids can keep the same downtown base and soften the itinerary with gentler, slower stops. Start at Petty Harbour's mini aquarium in the morning, then picnic in the fishing village before heading back to town. Spend an afternoon at Boring Park, where the ponds, playgrounds, and open lawns suit younger children well. On a second day, the Johnson Geo Center and a calm harborfront walk balance a little learning with easy outdoor time. Newfoundland food is one of the most distinctive regional cuisines in Canada, built on salt cod, game, and hard weather. The bedrock is the historic cod fishery, so expect fish and chips, pan-fried cod, and crisp cod tongues on many menus. The signature traditional meal is Jigs's dinner, salt beef boiled with root vegetables and a steamed peas pudding on the side. Breakfast leans toward totins, fried bread dough served with molasses, often alongside scrunchions, which are crisp rendered pork fat. Fish and brews pairs salt cod with soaked, hard bread, a true outport classic that rewards an open mind. For something sweeter, look for figgy duff, partridge berry pie, and bake apple jam made from local cloudberries. The most famous drink is Screech, a dark Newfoundland rum tied to the playful screech-in ceremony for visitors. Local breweries also bottle beer and water made with actual iceberg ice harvested off the coast each spring. Most of the dining concentrates downtown, especially along Water Street and around the George Street pubs. This is where you find the strongest seafood kitchens, from casual fish and chip shops to polished tasting menus. Kitty Vitty and the nearby Mallard Cottage extend the scene with celebrated farm and sea cooking just outside downtown. Mallard Cottage, set in a centuries-old building, is especially known for its long, leisurely Sunday brunch built on local ingredients. Seafood-forward spots, like the St. John's Fish Exchange, anchor the upper middle range right along the harbor. For a casual meal, Chafe's Landing in Petty Harbor is a beloved local stop for traditional fish and chips. Bakeries and cafes, led by Rocket Bakery on Water Street, cover breakfast and lunch reliably downtown. The brewpub scene is strong too, with Yellow Belly, Kitty Vitty, and Bannerman Brewing all worth an evening stop. On price, an inexpensive meal like fish and chips runs about 15 to 20 Canadian dollars per person. A mid-range dinner for two with drinks lands around $80 to $100 along Water Street. At the top end, a tasting menu at the city's best tables can reach $110 to $150 per person. A pint of local craft beer is typically $8 to $9, and a cafe coffee runs around $5. Breakfast near downtown hotels is easy, with cafes and diners opening by 7 for early starts on the trails. Vegetarians and vegans are reasonably served downtown, though traditional menus still revolve heavily around fish and meat. For the full experience, seek out a kitchen party where live music, dancing, and food spill through a pub back room or a private home. The more adventurous can hunt down seal, flipper pie, or molasses-soaked lassie bread, both acquired tastes worth one curious bite. St. John's is a mid-priced Canadian city, with costs lifted slightly by its remote island location. All the figures here are in Canadian dollars, which recently traded around $1 to 1.4. A budget day, with a hostel bed, cheap eats, and the bus, runs roughly $110 to $120. That budget tier assumes a $40 dorm, simple meals under $20, and Metrobus to get around town. A moderate day lands closer to $180, mixing a budget hotel with sit-down meals and a paid attraction. That covers a mid-tier room, 2 restaurant meals, and an admission or 2 without much restraint. A comfortable day runs near $280, built around a mid-range hotel and full restaurant dining. At that level, you are eating well, joining tours, and likely renting a car for the coastline. Lodging is the biggest swing, from $40 for a dorm to well over $300 for an upscale room. Food sits in the middle, with a realistic day of meals running $30 to $90 per person. Transport is cheap if you walk or bus, but a rental car adds $60 to $75 a day. Attractions are gentle on the wallet, with the marquee historic sites charging only about $4 each. One thing to budget for is tax. Newfoundland adds a 15% harmonized sales tax to most purchases. Hotels also carry an extra small accommodation levy, so the nightly rate you see is never the final price. Overall, expect to spend a little more than in mainland cities like Halifax, mostly on lodging and groceries. Compared with major metros like Toronto, though, daily costs here run noticeably lower across the board. The short version is that summer is the season here, and almost everything else is a trade-off. July and August are the warmest and driest months, with highs around 21 Celsius, close to 70 Fahrenheit. Even at the peak, the evenings stay cool, so a light jacket is useful right through the year. These 2 months are also the busiest, when iceberg season is wrapping up and whale watching is at its best. Late spring, in May and June, is the prime time for icebergs drifting down the coast known as Iceberg Alley. Spring is cooler and famously foggy, with May highs only around 10 Celsius, about 50 Fahrenheit. June is a real sweet spot, pairing late icebergs and early whales with thinner crowds than midsummer. September into early October is the best shoulder window, offering mild days and far fewer visitors. Fall highs sit near 12 to 17 Celsius in the mid-50s to low 60s Fahrenheit, with bright color on the trails. Winter, from December through February, is cold, snowy, and the hardest season for most visitors. Those months bring highs near freezing, frequent storms, and the shortest, grayest days of the year. Many tours and some seasonal sites close in winter, though the pubs and museums stay lively indoors. Across every season, two constants define St. John's weather: the fog and the wind, even on otherwise fine days. Try to time your trip around early August for the Royal St. John's Regatta, North America's oldest organized sporting event. Held on Kitty Vitty Lake, it doubles as a civic holiday and a quintessential local experience. Early August also brings the George Street Festival, 6 nights of outdoor concerts packed into the bar district. The Newfoundland and Labrador Folk Festival lands in early August as well, filling Bannerman Park with traditional music. For the best overall balance of weather, wildlife, and events, aim for the window from late June through August. A few practical notes will smooth out a St. John's trip, starting with entry and money. For United States citizens, no visa is needed for a visit, and you do not need an ETA when flying in. The currency is the Canadian dollar, and cards are accepted almost everywhere, including tap-to-pay and mobile wallets. Carry a little cash for small vendors, but you can get through most days on a card alone. ATMs are easy to find and reliably accept foreign cards, usually with a fee of about $3 per withdrawal. Tipping follows Canadian norms, so plan on 15 to 20% at sit-down restaurants before tax. Bars and cafes expect 10 to 15%, and a couple of dollars per bag is standard for hotel porters. Power and plugs match the United States, with the same flat pin outlets and 120 volts. So travelers from the United States need no adapter, while those from Europe or Asia certainly will. Connectivity is solid, with strong mobile coverage downtown, though the newest network tier is still spotty across the city. Home internet is fast, and most hotels and cafes offer reliable Wi-Fi that is fine for remote work. If you need a local plan, stick with the major carriers like Rogers, Bell, or TELUS. Discount carriers have weak coverage in Newfoundland, and an eSIM works fine if your phone supports one. On safety, St. John's is one of the safer cities in North America, with low rates of violent and petty crime. Solo travelers, including women, generally feel comfortable walking downtown at night using normal precautions. The bigger hazards here are natural: the slick hills in the rain and sudden fog along the coastal trails. English is universal, though the Newfoundland dialect and local slang can take a little while to follow. Locals are famously warm and talkative, and a friendly, unhurried manner goes a long way here. Packing for St. John's is really about preparing for wind, rain, and rapid changes in the weather. For clothing, layering is essential, even in summer, because temperatures and conditions can shift fast. Pack a warm mid-layer, a windproof and waterproof shell, and a hat even for cool July evenings. Footwear matters too, so bring sturdy waterproof walking shoes for the wet, steep, and uneven streets. For trail days, proper hiking boots with grip make the coastal paths far safer and more comfortable. On gear, carry a compact umbrella that can handle wind, plus a day pack for the layers you will shed and add. Add sunglasses and sunscreen for the bright coastal days, and a power bank for long hours spent outdoors. So, who is St. John's really for, and who might want to look elsewhere? It is an outstanding fit for travelers who love rugged coastlines, layered history, and genuine local culture. Hikers, wildlife watchers, and anyone chasing icebergs or whales will find few better bases in North America. Music lovers and pubgoers also get a lot here, thanks to a nightlife scene far larger than the city's size suggests. Families do well in summer, balancing the aquarium, parks, and easy harbor walks against the bigger coastal sites. It is a weaker pick if you want reliable sunshine, warm beaches, or a polished big city experience. Travelers who need predictable weather or who dislike wind and fog will likely leave a little frustrated. And because reaching the island takes real effort and money, it rewards a longer, deliberate visit over a quick stop. The fair verdict is that St. John's offers an experience you simply cannot find anywhere else in North America. For the right traveler, that distinctiveness is well worth the extra cost and the unpredictable skies. We hope this guide helps you decide whether St. John's belongs on your list and how to plan the trip well. If you found it useful, consider subscribing for more honest, research-driven travel guides and safe travels out there. That's our guide to St. John's, Canada. Everything mentioned is linked in the description below. If you are planning another trip, we have more guides waiting for you. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks so much for watching.